About 50 million years ago, when the Indian subcontinent slammed into the Eurasian plate with an epic force, every sound seemed to fade away in the deafening roar of that impact. It wasn't just a tectonic collision, it was a cataclysm that changed the face of the Earth forever. From this massive upheaval rose the biggest and highest mountain range on the planet. Up there, a unique world took shape, a sanctuary of hidden valleys, sacred peaks and lakes. Mysterious and ancient, where age-old spiritual traditions thrived, staying almost completely cut off from the outside world. Nestled in eastern Tibet, the Chamo region is where three of Asia's great rivers, the Mekong, the Salween, and the Yangtze, run side by side, carving through the mountain ranges. Their rushing waters have shaped the land, creating deep, unfathomable gorges and jagged peaks, painting a landscape that's as wild as it is breathtaking. This is the land of Kham, a place, an ancient Tibetan community that proudly holds on to its own language, traditions, and unmistakable monastic architecture. For centuries, this land was the starting point of the legendary tea and horse road. Back in the day, daring caravans loaded with pu'er tea from Yunnan braved high mountain passes to reach the sacred Lhasa. These paths didn't just carry goods, they also carried ideas and beliefs, invisible forces that they ended up carving a path to the heart of Tibet. Nowadays, a new road snakes its way through these towering stone giants. National Highway 318, known as one of China's longest and most iconic routes, stretches over 5,000 kilometers from bustling Shanghai all the way to the Nepal border. But it's the stretch that cuts through Tibetan land from Kham to Lhasa that really takes on a near-mythical status, often hailed as the road to the sky. This route takes you over more than a dozen dizzyingly steep mountain passes. Those who dare to venture here get to see peaks covered in snow forever, ancient glaciers, and stretches lined with countless prayer flags fluttering in the wind. Some choose to make the journey on foot across the whole Tibetan region like it's a sacred pilgrimage, turning the trip into an act of pure devotion. But as the path leads deeper into Kham, that devotion, it takes on a new and mysterious form. On the banks of the Lansang River in Mark County, a dreamlike, almost surreal scene unfolds before our eyes. Hundreds of salt pans have been carved into the crimson rock, arranged in stepped terraces that create a striking geometric mosaic. These salt fields are over 1,300 years old, and even today they're still worked exactly the same way, entirely by hand. Each brine pool is looked after by a single family, not just as a physical possession, but as a sacred spiritual legacy. Many believe this work is a karmic debt, an unbreakable bond that ties human destiny to their lineage and the very land itself. The water here doesn't come from the river's flow. Instead, it springs from sacred hot springs nearby. Before starting the harvest, families perform solemn rituals and chant mantras, reminding themselves that their work goes beyond the physical and touches the spiritual. In ancient Tibet, Markham salt was valued even more than silver. It was carried on the backs of yaks across dizzying mountain passes and traded along the legendary tea horse road. At dusk, the terraces glow with vibrant pink and white hues, and the silhouettes of the workers move slowly and gracefully, almost like they're performing an ancient dance. Their rhythm is guided by the land itself and the unwavering depth of faith. When night finally falls and the world sinks into total silence, the music seems to fade away into nothingness. The endless ice layer in Tibet makes road and railway engineering nearly impossible, but on National Highway 318, this challenge becomes part of the journey itself and hits you hard on the new Lien San descent. 72 curves. It's a dizzying slope of more than 1 degree. This 1,000-meter stretch is packed with 72 tight turns along a cliff wall, almost a vertical rock face. Lots of sections have no protection, while fog rolls up from the abyss in ghostly waves. This is one of the trickiest routes ever traveled by the old tea caravans and military convoys. Nowadays, this place stands as a test of human courage and a path for those looking to cleanse their karma. Mani stones, flat slabs carved with Buddhist prayers, line the trail, standing like silent guardians offering blessings to the travelers. However, not all of Kham's sacred landscapes lie right next to the highway. Sometimes you have to take a detour into deeper silence. Diqing is a tiny village at the edge of the known world. Here, the pavement seems to fade away and the primal power returns to the earth. The vibe around this place is dry and completely still. Nothing seems to be in a hurry. Columns of smoke drift lazily up from the rooftops, while the prayer flags, they whisper in the breeze. And suddenly, on the outskirts, the land transforms. The red Dinga mountain range rises up sharply. These are rugged, rust-colored mountains, like they've been scorched by iron and polished by the winds over eons. For the locals, this place is incredibly sacred, and some believe guardian deities live among the peaks. Some even say they can make out divine faces emerging from the living rock. This land remains almost untouched. The trails are so faint that they're barely noticeable. Almost invisible, marked only by the footprints of shepherds and the occasional silhouette of pilgrims walking silently. And it's in this stillness that we move toward a place barely seen by human eyes. Hanging dizzyingly over the crimson cliffs, the monastery appears to defy gravity, as if it's floating in midair. It's built right into the vertical rock face, with no visible path leading up or down. This is the highest sanctuary of the world, perched at nearly 5,000 meters above sea level. Like many shelters hidden on the steep slopes of Tibet, its isolation isn't accidental. This seclusion offers priceless benefits for those seeking deep meditation and long-lasting peace. On the nearby peaks, hermit cells dot the rocky ridges, some occupied year-round. Monks and nuns live there in complete silence for months at a time, sometimes for decades on end. The land beneath these sacred mountains has been a refuge for asceticism since time immemorial. Reaching Siju is quite the feat. In winter, the path completely disappears under the snow, but those who push through and make it are greeted by a pristine atmosphere. Total silence, no electricity, no vehicles, no human voices, just the whisper of the wind and the gentle rustle of prayer flags in a world hanging between the sky and the earth. As we head further out, the scenery starts to change. We go down into an area that feels like a whole different world. It's Ningxi, often called the Switzerland of Tibet because of its alpine landscape and surprisingly lush greenery. Nestled at a lower altitude, Ningxi shows a softer, almost otherworldly side of Tibet. The weather's mild, the plant life is thick, and there's a kind of vibrancy you don't usually see on the plateau. The snow-capped peaks still loom as towering challengers, but at their feet stretch forests, canyons, and lush valleys bursting with vibrant green. This is the only spot on the Tibetan plateau where subtropical jungle meets the highest mountain ranges. It's a rare natural mix unlike anything else anywhere. And hidden in this wild, rugged landscape lies one of the most incredible wonders on Earth, the Great Yarlungpo River Canyon, the deepest gorge on the planet. Here, the Himalayas plunge down. Plunging steeply into the rainforest, the Earth's crust looks like it's been ripped apart. The Yarlung Tsangpo River, which later becomes the Brahmaputra, rushes wild and fierce, carving out a canyon so remote and hard to reach that it's been called the last great unexplored canyon in the world. It's over 5,300 meters deep, deeper even than the Grand Canyon in the U.S. The Indian monsoon rains feed this land, creating a lush and diverse ecosystem. The dizzying peaks are wrapped in subtropical clouds, fog clings stubbornly to the cliffs, and constant landslides keep reshaping the slopes. Right in the heart of the abyss, the river makes a sharp 180-degree bend around the colossal Namcha Barwa mountain, a peak that towers up to 7,782 meters. This is the eastern edge of the Himalayas, home to one of the most impenetrable 7,000-meter giants, never really challenged. It's known as the Hidden Mountain. Usually, it's shrouded by a thick blanket of clouds. In Tibetan tradition, Namcha Barwa is a sacred deity for us. He's a warrior god, like a spear piercing the sky, a powerful presence guarding the entrance to Pemiko, the secret land of spiritual awakening. Locals say that only those with pure karma are lucky enough to see its peak clearly. The best spot to catch this elusive view is Segila Pass, a road that gently climbs above the treetops. On those rare mornings with crystal-clear skies, the clouds part and the peak of Namcha Barwa appears on the horizon like a divine mirage. Here, the line between the material world and the spiritual one gets blurry. It's a place where paths and trails are dotted with prayer flags. Blue calls to the sky, white to the air, red to fire, green to water, and yellow to the earth. The wind lifts them up like an offering to unseen forces. Those flags remind travelers that this isn't just some ordinary place on the map. It's a sacred threshold between the known and the unfathomable. And no Ninchi journey is truly complete without witnessing such a fleeting miracle. As you go down into the depths of the canyon, the air feels gentler. Around late March and early April, the peach trees burst into bloom in the alpine valleys, painting the slopes with a delicate pink that stands out against the harshness of the snow-capped peaks. It's hard to believe that such fragile flowers can survive alongside such towering mountain ranges, but it's exactly this contrast that creates an almost magical landscape. The locals call this place the Peach Blossom Valley. Even though the blooming is short-lived, it's always met with awe and respect. Families, pilgrims, and travelers come here not just for the beauty, but looking for a feeling of renewal. The air is fresh, the light soft, and it feels like nature itself pauses to savor this fleeting, perfect moment. Standing tall above the valley, the silhouette of Namcha Barua is still here, but eternal, watching over the land like an everlasting guardian. In this part of Tibet, the path forward is never clear, but if you follow the trail of flowers, rivers, and prayer flags, you might suddenly find yourself at the crossroads where myth and reality blend. Leaving behind the lush valleys of Ninchi, we head west again, crossing high passes and vast plateaus under a sky that changes mood every hour. The land rises and stretches out into the vastness. The roads get lonelier and lonelier. The horizon widens, and the air carries an ancient silence that only lingers at these heights. And here we are in Ali, one of the most remote and captivating spots on the Tibetan plateau. This place holds the title of the roof of the world. Ali sits at an altitude above 4,500 meters. It's the desert of the third pole, a land of wind-swept plains, glacial lakes, and a stillness so deep it feels almost spiritual. Here the emptiness spreads out, and every horizon stretches on forever. Where the valley narrows and the sky's edge fades away, the land feels almost otherworldly. Right before us stands the earth forest of Sanda, a maze of sharp clay spires, carefully carved by wind, water, and shifting earth over time. From afar, it looks like a lost city half buried in rock. This is the largest geological formation of its kind in Tibet, and maybe the eeriest too. Some of the columns are over 40 meters tall, twisting like flames that have turned to stone. Local legends say these cliffs were actually ancient palaces frozen in time. And when dusk falls and long shadows stretch across the valley, it's easy to believe that life once thrived here in luxury. The deeper we go into this stone maze, the blurrier the line between geology and history becomes. Caves start to appear in the bare rock, small ones. Stairs carved into the cliffs climb upward. Hidden in this spot lies one of Tibet's deepest mysteries, the ruins of the Gugge Kingdom. The scene unfolds before us like something out of a movie. Crimson walls, stairways hewn from living rock, and cave temples where vibrant frescoes were painted thousands of years ago still stand untouched on the cliffside. Faded images of Buddhas and mandalas rest alongside crumbling statues and prayer niches. It's like telling silent stories about faith, power, and the unstoppable decay. No one really knows why Gugge faded into oblivion. Some say it was betrayal and conquest, while others think it was spiritual corruption that let the desert swallow the city that once ruled over it. Now silence rules here, turning this place into a graveyard worn down by time and stone until it's just dust. And as you look over the walls, worn down and forgotten paths make it easy to picture what this world used to be like, a kingdom built on faith that's now completely gone. The ruins of Gugge, wrapped up in the eerie beauty of a stone forest, stand as a reminder that even the greatest empires are bound to fall, leaving behind only whispers lost in the wind. As the treacherous cliffs of Gugge faded behind us, the journey went on. Crossing vast, endless plains, the wind started howling and the landscape fell into an eerie stillness. Life seemed to fade away. The air grew thinner and the silence felt heavy and oppressive. But suddenly, signs came back. An invisible force pushed us to a spot where all paths meet. A mountain with almost perfect symmetry began rising from the plateau. It was Kailash, standing tall, though it's not the highest peak in the Himalayas. For many people, it's the most sacred mountain on earth. Buddhists, Hindus, Jains, and followers of Bon all worship it as the center of the universe, the spot where the material world and the spiritual realm come together. Its four faces line up perfectly with the four cardinal points and four major rivers, the Indus, Sutlej, Brahmaputra, and Karnali. These rivers spring from its slopes as if the mountain itself is breathing life into half of Asia. No human has ever set foot on the summit of Kailash, not because it's impossible.
It's not that it's physically impossible, but because it's forbidden. Setting foot on its slopes is seen as desecrating its absolute holiness. That's why pilgrims choose to walk around the mountain instead, a sacred ritual that's been carried out for centuries. This route, called the Kora, is about 52 kilometers long and is believed to cleanse a whole lifetime. Completing 108 laps is said to bring you closer to ultimate enlightenment. The pilgrimage path crosses steep passes, fords icy streams, and winds through high plateaus. Rocky, wind-beaten lands, all under the unchanging watch of the sacred mountain. Prayer flags flap wildly along the path as devotees spin their prayer wheels, whispering ancient mantras. Some move forward in full prostration, measuring the vastness of the land by the length of their own bodies. For them, every meter gained isn't just physical distance, but a spiritual breakthrough. South of Kailash lies Lake Manasarovar, the most sacred body of water in Asia, stretching out like a heavenly mirror facing the divine. According to Hindu legend, the god Brahma imagined this lake deep in his mind before it came to life in the earthly world. It's believed that just touching these waters can wash away the karma built up over countless past lives. For many pilgrims, the journey doesn't end at Kailash, as they go on to make a second round on the vast shores of Manasarovar. There, they don't chase after the cravings of the flesh, but seek the absolute stillness of the soul. On full moon nights, according to Dawa's legend, the gods come down to bathe in the lake, blessing the waters and everyone who dares to step onto its banks. Flags flutter along the shore, the wind whispers across the surface, and an indescribable sacred presence fills the deep silence. If in Ali the earth seems bursting with stories, here there's nothing but emptiness. All that remains is the absolute barrenness. The wind has nowhere to hide, the cold is relentless, and the emptiness stretches on forever. At over 4,500 meters up, the Changtang Plateau strips life down to its rawest core. Yet life goes on. Nomads keep following their age-old seasonal routes. The wool tents of the Jax herders stand strong, braving the icy grip of winter. Tibetan antelopes appear and vanish like ghosts in the mist, fleeting and elusive. This beauty doesn't show itself right away, but if you stop and really take it in, it reaches deep into your soul. Even in such a harsh land, there are moments of miraculous light, wide, quiet, and clear. At 4,180 meters up, Namzo shines like a mirror reflecting the sky. Being one of the highest salt lakes in the world, it's revered as a heavenly body of water, forever connected to the nearby Nyenshin Tangla mountain. During the full moon of the Sagadua month, pilgrims circle around it, shores seeking to cleanse their karma. The lake is believed to embody the feminine principle of water, balanced by the mountain's masculine strength, creating perfect harmony between earth and spirit. On the far northwest shore lies the sacred Elephant Gate, where a rock arch dips into the water like a giant's trunk. Carved by wind and time, it's seen as a gateway between worlds, a threshold where hermits chose to meditate in the deepest sense of the word, silence. And even now, that stillness remains unchanged. From this gift of nature comes one of Tibet's most sacred views: divine peaks, vast skies, and endless blue. From this stone gateway, where time and faith have given meaning to every curve of the cliff, the path leads us once again into the depths of the windy Nachu. Here, sacredness isn't always found in temples built by people. Sometimes it springs straight from the very heart of the earth. Deep down,
In the remote Bangwen County, there's a formation locals call the Tree of the Earth. It's a lone monolith rising from the barren plateau, looking like a petrified tree growing out of lifeless ground. Some say it's the spiritual center of the highlands, the exact spot where earth and sky almost touch. Even though its shape was shaped purely by the raw power of the elements, its living silhouette seems to hint at something greater. It's a symbol of balance and resilience in a place where survival feels almost impossible. In Tibetan beliefs, it's said to reflect the harmony of the four elements: earth, water, fire, and wind, coming together like a natural mandala carved by silence itself. If you manage to get here, you won't find any temple or memorial stone waiting for you, just the vast sky and a windswept plain. Yet standing before the Tree of the Earth, you don't get the sense that it's just more than just a lifeless monument. It feels like you're facing a living presence, like the earth itself chose this form to raise its voice out of silence. In Tibet, and maybe anywhere in the world, there's no place quite like it. North of Bangwen, the Changtang Plateau opens up to an almost unreal landscape, a land completely free of human presence.
This area is known as the Changtang Desert. It stretches over more than 600,000 square kilometers, standing as one of the vastest and most remote deserts on the planet, high up, open, and brutally harsh. At over 5,000 meters altitude, the air gets thin, the wind cuts like ice, and temperatures can plunge below -40 degrees Celsius. The weather here is a total mystery. Sun, snow, hail, and storms can all happen in the same day. They say Tibet goes through all 4 seasons in just one day, and here, that truth hits you hard. Most of this land has never, it's been permanently inhabited. The heart of Changtang remains off-limits, strictly protected because its ecosystem is so fragile. No roads, no villages, no sign of human life. Just the wind and an open space stretching all the way to the horizon. But the land isn't empty. The animals don't just live here, they belong to this place in a way people could never really understand. As we get closer to central Tibet, the landscape starts to soften. Barley fields sway gently in the breeze. The vast sky and winding river valleys wrap around ancient villages. Life here moves at a much calmer pace compared to the harsh highlands. This is the Shigetse region, once the great granary of Tibet and the former capital of a powerful kingdom. It even rivaled Lhasa, leaving behind forts, monasteries, and a legacy of power that once shaped the fate of the whole area. Today, this place is a spiritual crossroads, a resting spot for pilgrims before they continue on their journey. A journey westward toward the most sacred shrines of Tibet. At the heart of this region lies the city of Shigetse, a historic center of power and pilgrimage. Towering over the landscape is the impressive Tashilhungpo Monastery, founded in 1447 by the first Dalai Lama, and later becoming the seat of the Panchen Lama, the second most important spiritual figure in Tibet. Devotees walk around the monastery's kora, making a sacred circle as they spin their prayer wheels. They say each spin brings as much merit as saying thousands of prayers, a quiet devotion that the wind carries far away. From the calm of Shigetse, the road southeast isn't long, but it's full of memories. The Songwatse proudly stands over the Nyang River Valley, one of Tibet's best preserved fortresses. For years, it guarded the vital route between east and west, earning the nickname the Little Potala of the West. But this fortress guards its own, a bloody history. In 1904, it became the stronghold of fierce resistance against the British Army. Armed only with swords and old-fashioned weapons, the local defenders bravely stood up to modern artillery. The scars from that siege still remain today. Burnt stones, crumbled walls, everything stands as a silent record of what happened. Now the fortress stands in peace. The battle ended long ago, but its marks still echo in the quiet. At the foot of the fortress lies the Pelkhor Monastery, home to the Kumbum Stupa, the biggest one in Tibet. This structure rises 9 levels high and houses 108 chapels, standing as a 3D mandala that guides visitors through the symbolic layers of enlightenment. This monastery is special for one unique reason. It brings together the 3 major schools of Tibetan Buddhism, Gelug, Sakya, and Kagyu, all in one sacred place. It's an unheard-of example of harmony that's not just seen in its teachings, but also felt in its architecture and their vivid murals. One of the most precious treasures kept here are the tankas, sacred scrolls that call upon deities, mandalas, and deep spiritual teachings. They're not just artworks, they're visual scriptures. Every stroke, shade, and detail forms a piece of the path to enlightenment, shared through vision rather than words. Creating a tanka ends months, sometimes years of devotion. The process itself is a form of meditation that involves rituals, strict routines, non-stop chanting of mantras, and deep spiritual focus. Leaving behind the majestic peaks, the path winds through vast valleys and slowly climbs up to a truly extraordinary spot. The journey doesn't start with a single step, but with 108 switchbacks carved into the mountainside, like silent vows. These 108 turns lead to the Gabala Pass, sitting over 5,000 meters high. In Tibetan tradition, 108 is a sacred number. It's found everywhere. Rosaries, on the temple steps, and in the mandalas, symbolizing spiritual wholeness. At the top of the pass, the horizon opens up in all its glory. A massive wall of snowy peaks rises before us. 5 of the highest mountains in the world stand in a solemn formation. Behind us, the path shines like a silver thread, while ahead, the Himalayas loom as the ultimate boundary between earth and sky. After a long journey, the land, it stretches out into the vastness. Over 5,000 meters up sits the Rongbuk Base Camp, a harsh plateau of rock and blizzard, where the mountain shows its true, terrifying size. The air here is thin, with oxygen levels barely half of what you'd find at sea level. For climbers, this marks the start of their epic journey, but for most of us, it's the most remote place we'll ever set foot on. It's a spot that leaves you speechless, just pure awe.
Even though the summit is about 20 kilometers away, Everest gives off an unsettling sense of closeness. Its height, over 8,800 meters, towers over the entire horizon, endless, unchanging, and eternal. Right at its base lies the Rongbuk Monastery, the last gateway between the world of humans and something way beyond. From here, you can see why the Tibetans call the mountain Yomaluma, the mother goddess of the world. But as you get closer to Everest, the landscape surprisingly softens. The snow and rock give way to fields of vibrant green and pure gold. At over 13,000 feet up, the Tingri region stands as one of the highest farming areas on Earth. They grow barley and potatoes here, and the locals still pull wooden plows, just like their ancestors did for generations. The weather is harsh, the air thin, and the harvests short-lived, but the land keeps giving life, thanks to the steady care and rhythm of human hands. Mount Everest looms ghost-like on the horizon, yet life here moves on with a calm and balance, unbreakable. The Shannon region, the original cradle of Tibetan civilization, is where legend and history come together. Barley fields ripple across the vast Yarlung Valley, lying next to ancient royal tombs and petroglyphs that tell the story of Tibet's rise as a sovereign kingdom. It was right here that the most important cultural and spiritual milestones took root, from the birth of the monarchy to the mystical arrival of Buddhism. Overlooking the valley stands Yambalaga, Yangang, the oldest building in Tibet. According to legend, it was built for the first mythical king, Nyat Sempo. The hillside where the palace sits is known by locals as the First Field, a symbol of the sacred union between the earth, power, and the divine. Later on, during the reign of Songtsen Gampo, Yambalagan was turned into a temple, marking the shift from the old royal traditions to Buddhism. Although the building itself is simple, its significance is huge, because it was here that the Tibetan cultural identity started to come alive. At the same time, in the 6th century, they created the Tibetan alphabet, not for everyday chatting, but to translate sacred Sanskrit scriptures. This moment marked a huge turning point for the whole culture. These threads of faith and self-awareness are woven throughout the land, and one place where you can see them most clearly is Lake Yamdrok. Like a massive, still mirror, the lake lies nestled between snowy mountain ranges and sunlit meadows. The Tibetans call it the mirror of paradise resting on the earth's chest, and when you look at it, you understand why. Often known as the turquoise heart of Tibet, it's one of the 3 sacred primordial lakes, revered both in legend and reality. Seen from above, the lake's shape looks like a scorpion, a symbol of hidden power and divine protection. On one of its peninsulas, there's sometimes a small heart-shaped lake, a natural mark that only it reveals itself under a special rite. Ancient legends say that Yamdrok is the living embodiment of a female deity, and her life force is deeply connected to the heartbeat of Tibet. If its waters were to dry up, the land would turn into a barren wasteland. For centuries, this sanctuary has drawn pilgrims, hermits, and prophets. Many have spent years in isolation in nearby monasteries and caves, praying to the primal power they believe rises from the lake steps. Clinging to a sheer cliff in Alkanenza County, Sealing Monastery is known as Tibet's Hanging Monastery. From afar, it looks like it's defying gravity, stuck into bare rock that towers steeply over the valley abyss. Getting there is a tough challenge, with a narrow path and steep steps carved right into the rock. The journey itself feels like a meditation. Sealing was originally a refuge for monks,
and later turned into a small monastery from the school. Its rooms feel more like natural caves than built halls, creating a space dedicated to silence and solitude. From the rocky outcrop in front of the monastery, you get a view of dense forests, deep canyons, and snowy peaks in the distance. Up here, everything seems even quieter, and the locals say that prayers are carried more easily by the wind and the mountain itself. In this spiritual flow, the Ganden Monastery, one of the cornerstones of Tibetan Buddhism, was founded by Ketsen Kappa back in 1409. The path up to its golden roofs winds steeply along the bare mountainside, like a silver thread wrapping around the mountain. Sitting over 4,000 meters high, Ganden stands as a gateway between worlds, where the sky, rock, and spirit meet. At its heart, it holds a silver and gold stupa containing the relics of Ketsen Kappa, always surrounded by pilgrims and prayer flags fluttering in the wind. Although Ganden was destroyed in the past, the monks rebuilt it stone by stone, keeping their unwavering devotion alive through the centuries. Ganden and Sealing share the birthplace where Tibetan identity was forged, and here lies Lhasa, the heart and soul of Tibet.
Sitting at 3,650 meters, it's one of the highest cities on Earth. For 1,000 years, it's been the cultural and religious hub of Tibet, living up to its name, which means place of the gods. Pilgrims from all across the plateau and distant lands of Kham have traveled thousands of kilometers to get here, kneeling at every step, measuring the distance with their own bodies. The Barkor, the sacred path around the Yokong temple, turns into a living river of faith. Prayer wheels spin, ancient mantras are whispered, and the incense smoke blends with the mountain air. Built in the 6th century, the Yokong temple is revered as the ultimate sanctuary, the beating heart of Tibetan Buddhism. Hidden deep inside is the statue of Yawa Shakyamuni. It's the most revered image, said to have been blessed by the Buddha himself while he was alive. This sacred statue was brought to Tibet by Princess Wencheng. For many, a lifetime of prayers seems to reach its peak the moment their eyes meet the golden, eternal gaze of the Yawa. Standing tall in the heart of the city is the Potala Palace, the most unmistakable symbol of Tibet. It has 13 levels. With over 1,000 rooms, it stands like a fortress of faith. Once the winter home of the Dalai Lamas, the Potala was the center of spiritual and political power for centuries. While the Red Palace houses sacred scriptures, relics, and the golden stupas of past Dalai Lamas, the White Palace was the administrative heart, where spiritual wisdom and state power lived side by side under one roof. Every staircase, every hallway holds layers of memory, where the scent of incense lingers, with the echo of mantras, shaping an ancient silence filled with reverence. And despite a changing world, the Potala stands strong, not just a monument to history, but a symbol of faith's resilience. At dawn, its silhouette cuts through the mountain mist, not as a relic, but as a living presence. Here, looking out over the city from above, you realize that in Tibet, tradition endures, quiet, faithful, and always rising. Tibet remains there, eternal, mysterious, and sacred, waiting for the spirits that resonate on the same frequency. I hope this journey has given you moments of true reflection. If you're fascinated by stories of history and places wrapped in mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment about which place you want me to reveal next. Your support is what keeps this adventure going. Thanks, and see you next time.